Welcome to The Explainer. Look, if you're a focused learner trying to completely maximize your time, you are in exactly the right place today. Our mission is all about transforming the often overwhelming, exhausting process of academic reading into an incredibly efficient, highly hackable game. We're going to take some of the heaviest, most intimidating documents on the planet, and I'm going to show you how to conquer them in a fraction of the time.
I mean, it's a genuine question. Let's just be honest for a second. We have all felt that sheer panic of drowning in dense, peer-reviewed academic papers. You pull up a search for your research project, and suddenly you're staring down a list of documents that average anywhere from 4,000 to 7,000 words each. Trying to read every single one of those from top to bottom, it's a massive drain on your time and your cognitive energy. It's simply not a sustainable way to learn or research. But what if you could extract the core value of that massive 7,000-word behemoth in under 2 minutes?
And a typical multi-section table of contents brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're up against here. Take an article about the territorial dynamics of innovation, for example. You're looking at an intimidating 11-section structure. You've got introductions, geographies, models and data, results of empirical analyses, conclusions, funding, acknowledgments, appendices, footnotes, and references. It is completely validating to feel utterly exhausted before you even read the very first sentence of the actual introduction. Navigating that blindly is basically a researcher's worst nightmare. But right at the very top of that terrifying list sits our ultimate cheat code, the abstract. An abstract is simply a short text at the very beginning of an academic article that summarizes the entire thing. It exists for one singular purpose, and that's enabling you, the reader, to decide whether or not to actually read the full text. Honestly, think of it as the ultimate movie trailer of the academic world. It gives you the plot, the main characters, the twist, and the ending, all so you can decide if you actually want to buy a ticket for the full show. 200. That is the magic number. While there isn't an absolute strict word count, abstracts typically hover right around that 200-word mark. And I really want to emphasize this single number because it represents pure efficiency. These 200 words are specifically and meticulously engineered by the authors to give you a complete top-down overview of that massive 7,000-word document. Mastering how to read these 200 words is literally the single greatest time saver in any academic or professional research toolkit.
Okay, Section 1, the anatomy of an abstract.
You see, an abstract isn't just some random jumble of 200 words. It has a very specific chronological flow. Almost every well-written abstract contains this exact sequence, and it perfectly mirrors the structure of the full multi-thousand-word report. First, you get the background or introduction, which sets the context. Second, the purpose or aims. Like, what is this study actually trying to do? Third, the methods. How did they do it? Fourth, the results. What do they actually find? And finally, the conclusion. What does it all mean? By recognizing this 5-step structure, you can instantly scan a block of text and jump straight to the exact piece of data you need, whether that's their methodology or their final outcome. Now, before we move on to how we analyze these, I've got to highlight a fascinating and honestly pretty ironic fact from our source material. It notes that although the abstract comes at the very beginning of a paper, it may actually be the very last section the researchers write. And, well, it makes perfect sense when you think about it. You really can't successfully summarize our methods, results, and conclusions into 200 words until you've actually finished the entire exhausting process of doing the research and writing the full paper. So the very first thing you read is actually the very last thing they created.
Moving right along to Section 2, objective fact or subjective spin.
Now, what's really interesting about compressing 7,000 words into a tiny paragraph is that choices have to be made. And where there are choices, well, there's the potential for bias. Parts of a report are purely objective, like the methods they used, the raw data they collected, or the literal results of a survey. However, authors can definitely impart subjective spin in other areas. For instance, how they interpret those results in the conclusion. That's subjective. Similarly, when they write a brief literature review in the background section, they're being highly selective. The author gets to choose which previous studies to highlight and which to ignore to make their own research look more vital. So you always have to read with a critical eye. So, the absolutely crucial point here is this. Never, ever cite an abstract blindly. Our source material points out a fantastic example of a discrepancy you really need to watch out for. In one research paper about alternative energy, the abstract boldly claims there will be a 5% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. But if you dig into the actual full conclusion of the paper, it specifies a 4 to 5% reduction. It might seem like a slight discrepancy, but in academic and professional writing, precision is everything. The abstract is your map, but the conclusion is the actual territory. Use the abstract to decide if the paper is worth your time,
but always verify the exact claims in the full text before you use them.
Let's move to section 3 and see how this all builds into your secret research weapon. So how do you actually use this to blast through a mountain of research? Well, you use those 200 words as a navigational compass to instantly categorize and triage any paper you find into one of 4 buckets. You read the abstract. Is it directly relevant to your specific topic? Boom, high priority. Read it fully. Is it just useful background context? That's medium priority. Keep it saved for later. Does it just have a passing mention of your topic? Low priority, just worth noting. But what if the abstract's purpose section totally misaligns with what you're looking for? Ignore it entirely. You literally just saved yourself 2 hours of reading by spending 2 minutes on the abstract. And that right there is how you hack academic reading. So think about your next big research project, your next essay, or even your next professional report. How much time are you going to save, and how much clearer will your focus be now that you know how to master the 200-word abstract? You've got the tools, you understand the structure, and you know exactly how to triage the noise to find the signal. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this empowers you to tackle any dense material with complete confidence.